Tonight on 19 Investigates, sex offenders off the grid, failing to register, dodging police, and putting families at risk. We'll take you inside the U.S. Marshals' big push to find these fugitives and the really simple step you can take to help. Cleveland's mayor calling conditions inside a downtown high-rise unacceptable. Now, he's urging a federal judge to step in and quickly. Find out how the city's crackdown could impact where you live and work. If your child needs surgery, how do you know if the hospital has enough experience? Tonight, we investigate why key data on pediatric procedures is kept out of public view and talk to the people fighting to pull back the curtain on children's hospitals. Hi everyone, I'm Brian Duffy and welcome to 19 Investigates. A Lorain County man went in for a routine tooth extraction. Never came home. The dentist accused of causing his death is now losing his license to practice anesthesia, and his license to practice dentistry has been suspended indefinitely. Investigator Mike Mason now with the latest.
Members of the Ohio State Dental Board making their final determination regarding Dr. Faisal Qureshi.
The board, in its expertise, has determined that suspension of the dental license and permanent revocation of the general anesthesia permit is necessary to adequately protect the public.
Board members voted to permanently revoke Qureshi's license to administer anesthesia, and his license to practice dentistry has been suspended indefinitely. Qureshi and his attorney didn't want to comment, citing pending litigation.
Dr. Qureshi, do you mind if we ask you a question?
No, I have no comment other than the comments I'm going to make to the board.
This case is surrounding the death of 48-year-old Matthew Miller from Lorain County. In 2023, he went to Qureshi's practice, the Visage Surgical Institute in Medina, to have 3 of his teeth pulled. Qureshi chose to do the procedure under general anesthesia. Within minutes, Miller stopped breathing and died at a hospital 4 days later. The dental board investigated and accused Qureshi of making several mistakes. They say Qureshi failed to have Miller cleared by a physician prior to the procedure. They say he administered a series of narcotics including Versed, fentanyl, ketamine, and propanol, one right after another without stopping to make sure they were working. They also accused Qureshi of not properly monitoring Miller while he was under anesthesia. A hearing examiner reviewed the evidence and recommended suspending Qureshi's license to administer anesthesia for up to a year. She said this was an isolated incident, but agreed mistakes were made. At the hearing, we heard statements from Qureshi, his attorney, and the Attorney General's office.
I'm deeply saddened by the events of August the 4th, and that even after the fact of performing 20,000 anesthesia procedures, that tragedy will forever remain etched in my mind and on the impact on that family. My desire to being committed to serving the people of Ohio and educating our future profession stands very strong in my mind, and I hope to continue that career.
You or the public may have seen on media accounts, which I would say is one-sided, which did not have Dr. Qureshi's input, and which is being driven, unfortunately, by personal injury attorneys who do have a vested account in the outcome of this. The hearing was not just one-sided.
Qureshi didn't use a stethoscope to do an evaluation of heart and lungs. It's almost laughable that to say that of someone with as much experience and education as Dr. Qureshi. Frankly, that he is a head of the Oral and Maxillofacial Surgery Center for training oral surgeons at Case Western.
And once again, board members voted to revoke Qureshi's license to administer anesthesia altogether. They voted to suspend his license to practice dentistry indefinitely, but not for a period less than 90 days. Qureshi does have the right to appeal this decision. Meanwhile, the civil lawsuit against him still continues, and we'll continue covering that and bringing you any of the latest updates. In Columbus, Mike Mason, 19 News.
While many sex offenders are failing to register their addresses, even hiding from police, putting your safety at risk, a U.S. Marshals task force is making a big push to find these fugitives and arrest them. Investigator Sarah Goldenberg gives us a look at what it takes and how you can help.
A new push to keep you and your family safe. Over 3 weeks in January, members of the Northern Ohio Violent Fugitive Task Force, led by U.S. Marshals, tracked down 7 fugitives wanted in Cuyahoga County for failing to register as sex offenders.
And how dangerous are some of their original offenses?
It is everything from cases that recently happened over the last couple of years. It can be a rape case, gross sexual imposition.
Assistant Chief Deputy U.S. Marshal Ann Murphy says it's a problem here in Northeast Ohio and across the country. By law, sex offenders must register their address and keep it up to date if they move, checking in with probation or parole.
When they don't comply with those orders and those rules and those laws, they're breaking the law, and that's all there is to it.
And if they're not checking in,
Hello?
That's really the danger, is, what's happening when nobody's keeping an eye on them.
U.S. Marshals arrested nearly 10,000 sex offender fugitives in fiscal year 2024 nationwide, according to their latest data. Murphy says here in Northern Ohio, they're keeping up the pressure over the next few months, publicizing specific fugitive cases each month in hopes of finding and arresting them, like these 3 men in Cleveland. All of them arrested by the task force. 2 of them, Ernest Scales and Shannon Riley, found about a week after marshals released this wanted poster you may have seen on 19 News. Scales was wanted for rape and other sex crime charges. Riley was arrested for failing to register. His original charge was rape. Marshals later arrested David Dowd this past Wednesday for failing to register his address. He faced an original charge of unlawful sexual conduct with a minor.
There's no time for, celebrating and patting each other on the back and saying, oh, great job, because there's a stack of more fugitives waiting to be caught that need to be caught and that, present a danger to the community.
So they move on to the next case, and that's where you come in. If you know where one of these fugitives may be hiding, a call or text could be all it takes.
And that one tiny piece of information that may not have made a difference or they may not think makes a difference breaks a case wide open.
Until they're found, their warrants stay active.
It makes things a lot safer for law enforcement, for family, for the fugitive, for the community, when we have as much information as we possibly can.
And Murphy says fugitives can make it easier on everyone by turning themselves in.
You don't have to be looking over your shoulder, and your family doesn't have to be worried. You can walk right into the Justice Center, you can walk right into our courthouse and turn yourself in.
Sarah says the U.S. Marshals have received dozens of tips on the fugitives they featured in February, and so they're hoping to get even more tips on 3 new fugitive sex offenders they're highlighting this month. 27-year-old Kelvin Carswell, 63-year-old Jackie Taylor, and 59-year-old Isaac Houston are all wanted for failing to register their addresses as required. The last known location for all 3 of these guys? Cleveland. Do you know where any of them may be hiding out right now? Reward money is available if you turn them in. You can call the Northern Ohio Violent Fugitive Task Force at 1-866-4WANTED. Anonymous tips can also be submitted online at usmarshals.gov. Now this, Cleveland Mayor Justin Bibb leading a charge to make sure downtown office buildings and apartments are safe and secure. And for the first time, the mayor has sent a letter to a federal judge asking that judge to fast track a case that involves Fannie Mae and a downtown apartment and office complex because living and working conditions in that building are what he calls unacceptable. Mayor Bibb toured Reserve Square, an apartment complex and the home of several businesses, including 19 News. The city, in its letter to the federal judge, made it clear that city officials are well aware of the problems the people who live and work in Reserve Square are facing.
We've issued 85 violations.
The problems are widespread. 19 investigates found at least 18 complaints from December of last year to February of this year made to the Building and Housing Department from people who live or work in the Reserve Square building. 14 of them complained of no heat in one of the coldest stretches we've seen in years. The heat issues have reportedly been fixed.
Yeah, no resident, no worker should have to come to work or go home and not have a safe living place.
There are other clear major ongoing issues in the building. Flooding, for one. This major pipe near a loading dock exploded and flooded nearly an entire floor. All of this had led to cleaning companies working to mitigate the growing mold throughout the building multiple times.
Nobody should be working in these conditions anywhere in our city.
Reserve Square, owned previously by K&D, went into bankruptcy last year. Heyman Company was appointed by a court as the receiver of the property in August of last year. Heyman, in a letter to the judge hearing the federal case, claimed that the building had, quote, significant deferred maintenance, a lack of proper security, evidence of squatters in many of the over 400 vacant units, unsanitary conditions, and widespread pest infestation. While the receiver has made great progress on stabilizing the building, work is ongoing. But problems remain. False fire alarms are a frequent problem, lights and alarms. Also at issue, concrete that drops from the ceilings of the parking garage that puts people and cars at risk, plus frequent flooding in the garage that the receiver claims has been mitigated. Homeless people urinate and defecate in stairwells.
Have you lost staff because of the conditions of the building?
Well, we've had people who simply won't come here. They won't show up because of their concerns. Gotcha. The mayor has approached the county's administrative judge about a dedicated, specialized docket that could streamline proceedings when a property goes into foreclosure.
How do we get these assets in local hands,
right,
with the local owner,
right,
who's going to invest responsibly?
Mayor Bibb opened that discussion with the judge because he said, unfortunately, this is a bigger problem than just Reserve Square, and it stands in the way of what he envisions for the city.
A safer city, a safer downtown. We need more people on the streets coming to work, going to lunch, going to happy hour, going to Cavs games, and Guardians games after work. We got to make sure we're creating that environment 24/7.
The court is now requiring the receiver, who is currently handling property maintenance and repairs for Reserve Square, to file weekly status reports regarding any updates, changes, or new complaints received relevant to the issues identified by the city of Cleveland.
Transparency is and should be everywhere, and if you have the information that could help parents make informed decisions, my golly, why wouldn't you release it?
Still ahead on 19 Investigates, what's happening inside children's hospitals. We're digging into why surgical volume data for kids is often kept confidential and how it could impact your family. A 4-year-old boy drowned after his own mother threw him in a lake. Ruth Miller said she gave her son to God. She was just found not guilty by reason of insanity. But there was no jury, and in fact, there was no trial. A judge simply issued a verdict. The bizarre and heartbreaking case is the subject of our latest episode of Dark Side of the Land, a true crime podcast from 19 Investigates.
If you put this in front of a jury, even if that jury has an opportunity to say they're not guilty by reason of insanity, they're going to think about that 4-year-old child. They're going to think about the kid, the other teenagers. This is a tragedy. And people feel awful, in particular when things like this happen to children, as they should. So the defense counsel in this case is likely saying, look, we don't want a jury of our peers in the community having to decide whether someone's not guilty and having to say the words not guilty for any reason when they know a child was killed by their mother.
Dark Side of the Land, Deadly Delusion is available now on the 19 News mobile app. You can also listen on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. A new law designed to notify Ohioans whenever a felon escapes custody went into effect this week. The notification system is the first of its kind in our country, and it was all prompted by a series of 19 Investigates reports. Mike Mason explains how it will work.
If a felon's on the loose in your neighborhood, you'll know about it. A notification similar to an Amber Alert will be sent to your smartphones. Governor Mike DeWine signed the bill into law in December. Last month, he invited us to the State House for a ceremonial signing. The new law is called the Escaped Convict Alert Program, or ECAP, and it took effect on Monday. It defines felon as anyone who has been charged or convicted of a felony. Representative Bill Romer first introduced the bill after watching our reports about inmates escaping custody in Summit County. We found the sheriff's office repeatedly failed to notify the public.
Then yourself, Channel 19, and the stories you ran, the fact that we were able to get a bill through this process so quickly to keep the people of Ohio safe, to keep them notified if there's an escaped felon at a jail, at a prison, that's very important to folks.
19 Investigates found Ohio's ECAP law is the first of its kind in the country. Several states have similar systems in place, but Ohio is the first to make escaped prisoner alerts automatic, geographically targeted, and triggered by any type of escape, not just from prison.
And it's these common sense types of things. They don't cost a lot, but it keeps the people in Ohio safe.
ECAP alerts can also be sent to your computer if you register online to receive them and if your local agency has that option. The Summit County Sheriff's Office won't comment on the new law or the prior escapes. Mike Mason, 19 News.
Well, if your child needs surgery, you want to make sure the hospital you choose is experienced. But data on how often some procedures are actually done on children is often shielded from public view, leaving parents in the dark. Senior national investigative reporter Josie Sturman discovers why and talks with a nonprofit trying to go behind the curtain of children's hospitals to learn more about the facilities we trust.
Call it the trip of a lifetime, an escape to paradise fulfilling a young woman's wish.
Look how beautiful it is this morning.
On this Hawaiian journey, Juliet Pace could just be a kid, not a care in the world, untethered from life's challenges. But at home in Maryland, reality can be far less fun to capture. It's here Juliet has to face the ever-present threat of a flare-up of the disease she's carried since birth.
Thank you, guys.
And the potential for hospital stays or even surgery down the road.
Seeing your child just in a hospital, just for anything, automatically spikes my anxiety. It feels like an out-of-body experience in a lot of ways. Always roll with the punches.
Bethany Pace has felt it many times. Her daughter, now a teenager, has sickle cell disease. The condition hospitalized Juliet 8 times in just her first year of life, and she's been in and out many times since.
I keep a positive mindset by reminding myself, this has happened before, and I have a good hospital 40 minutes away from me, so it can't all be that bad.
Juliet is just a short drive from Johns Hopkins Hospital in Baltimore, which the Paces have trusted with her treatment since the beginning. A big reason, Bethany says, open communication, and not just from the doctors themselves. Hopkins posts data independently on its own website and participates in surveys that detail performance metrics for the public to see. The hospital has also given Bethany the opportunity to serve on a patient and family council that's designed to help improve quality and safety.
What does that say when an institution is transparent?
When there is that transparency, they're saying we are taking accountability for the care that we provide.
But when it comes to care for children, there's something Bethany and moms and dads across the nation will struggle to find even at the most transparent hospitals: data about pediatric surgical volume. That's the measure that counts how often the hospitals that parents trust with their children perform surgeries. It doesn't matter if it's something as simple as ear tubes or as complex as a procedure related to pediatric cancer. Our national investigative team discovered there's virtually no public information available about how frequently certain procedures are done at specific hospitals, even though similar information is widely known about adult patients.
So why aren't pediatric hospitals as open and as transparent?
Josie, let's be clear, they're not even on the same level, they're invisible. There's essentially no volume reporting for pediatric surgery. And for the most part, parents are making blind decisions with their lives of their child.
Their decisions, Dr. Peter Pronovost with University Hospitals in Cleveland says, are being made without critical information because higher surgical volume can be linked to better outcomes. As one of the nation's leading experts in healthcare quality and safety, he says the data parents and patients need to know about volume does exist, but it isn't publicly shared. It could be if the government mandated it.
For pediatric patients, well, they're not included in Medicare data, so they're invisible in that. And every state has an all-payer database that counts surgeries. And the Agency for Healthcare Research and Quality has that data. They purchased it from the states. But the data use agreements between the state and AHRQ precludes them from making this data public, which is just, horrific.
Those agreements govern information collected in something called the Kids Inpatient Database. It's put together by AHRQ, the federal agency Pronovost mentioned. It has information about millions of pediatric patients released from hospitals every year, including procedure data from specific hospitals across the nation. But the fine print we examined shows it's confidential, with use of any information that identifies hospitals strictly prohibited. You can't even contact them to verify their own reporting.
I think it's probably from decades-old agreements when maybe transparency, we weren't as forward and they didn't want to show hospital volumes or the volumes of the individual surgeons. But now we're in a very different place and transparency is and should be everywhere. And if you have the information that could help parents make informed decisions, my golly, why wouldn't you release it?
We repeatedly contacted AHRQ asking why it continues to shield this information from public view and how it answers concerns from experts like Pronovost, who say it's time to knock down barriers to transparency in pediatrics. The agency did not respond to those questions. We also repeatedly asked the Children's Hospital Association, which represents more than 200 pediatric hospitals, to talk with us about transparency, but it declined. It would only provide a statement discussing the importance of care, that healthcare decisions should be made between families and their doctors, and that they follow data protection laws that safeguard children's health and privacy.
This is an area where the quality movement has left children behind, and it needs to go back and remedy that.
An organization called Leapfrog is trying to help parents see behind the curtain of children's hospitals. The nonprofit collects voluntary surveys from facilities coast to coast, gathering data on safety and quality. We found that most general hospitals cooperate, with about 2/3 of the more than 3,000 surveyed submitting information to Leapfrog. Pediatric hospitals, on the other hand, have been far less responsive.
As a parent, I will go to the end of the earth to find the right hospital for a child who needs critical care. And yet, very little is available to me to choose among those hospitals.
Leah Binder is the CEO of Leapfrog, which publicly publishes those surveys from hospitals across the country. In them, the organization asks pediatric hospitals for some specific data, like how many infant heart procedures they perform, their infection rates, and whether they have doctors specially trained to treat kids. We analyzed their surveys dating back to 2023, discovering that more than 2/3 of the 90-some pediatric facilities they surveyed declined to respond. That includes some of the biggest names in pediatric medicine: St. Jude's, Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, and Children's National in D.C.
The impact is that many parents are entrusting the lives of their children to hospitals that they don't know how they're doing. And that's very unfortunate.
Our team canvassed dozens of children's hospitals from coast to coast, asking questions about why they didn't participate in the Leapfrog survey and where they post data to help parents who want to know critical information. We repeatedly heard that while transparency is a priority, limited resources make responding to Leapfrog challenging, diverting significant time away from patient care. Many facilities told us they voluntarily report data to registries that track specific conditions or surgeries and supply information to state agencies or medical associations. Some told us they have questions about Leapfrog's methodology and prefer to participate in the survey from U.S. News and World Report, a media company which ranks hospitals but doesn't publicly post specific data or statistics. As a result, there's little uniformity or mandated pediatric reporting, leaving a patchwork of information for parents and patients to wade through.
And I would just wish that everybody could everybody's equal and that we can all get the same information.
That's something Juliet's mom, Bethany, could help with. thanks to her role on that patient and family council.
I'm part of this because it is open for talking about the good, talking about the bad, talking about how we can continue to get better as a hospital.
She says if those councils at hospitals across the country band together, they could have real power, something Pronovost agrees with. Together, they could make a unified push for mandated pediatric data reporting in places parents can see, so they can make informed decisions about what they value most, their children.
All of us have something that is part of our life. You know, we all figure out how to navigate it, and it's with care, with data and information and resources that really go to how well we do that. And so that is absolutely what I'm focused on for Juliet in creating the life that she's meant to have.
The Children's Hospital Association says healthcare decisions are best made between families and their doctors, and that its members follow data protection laws to protect patient safety and privacy. Experts tell us parents should ask surgeons and hospitals directly how often they've done pediatric surgeries to make sure they feel comfortable. Well, the stories we showed you today are streaming now on 19 News Plus. You can download the app for free on your Apple TV, Roku, or Amazon Fire TV device. Next week on 19 Investigates, hundreds of workers who cut countertops are sick or dying from a deadly preventable lung disease. Now, there's a battle in Congress over who's responsible. That story and much more coming up next week on 19 Investigates. I'm Brian Duffy. Thanks for watching.